So this was pretty much the same deal as last time. I got another message for you that I just sort of wrote down and figured I'd record it. This time I'm smart enough to not aim the phone at the computer screen because that was probably disorienting. But I'll just read it to you and use the crystals again. And hopefully this will look better than last time. Okay, so again I see that your root chakra is stabilizing and that you're becoming more sure of yourself. You're growing in new ways, in a new direction, and that the pressure that you've been under has actually been the thing that's invigorated you and pushed you into that need for change. And I got an image, it was like, a flower growing out of like the crack in the pavement, Like you're bursting through something negative, an oppressive situation, and, kind of blooming despite everything. And you just have to do things in your life differently, differently than everyone else. Different than what, expectations might be put on you. You should be defying other people's expectations, and, you have to do things your own way, or they're never gonna be what you want them to be. Now, you mentioned something to me that you wanted to ask about, but I don't think you got to it, about, exercise, health, fitness. I see that's going to be very good for your sacral chakra. And it makes you feel good about yourself, and it's both, the mental and physical health benefits. But also I just feel whatever kind of fitness, whatever thing that you're getting into or have already gotten into, it's like something you're genuinely interested in, and there's something creative about it that actually holds your interest. And yeah, some sort of physical activity is going to become really big for you if it hasn't already, and it's really integrates into part of your personality, really becomes something that's an interest and regular part of your lifestyle. And it's like your whole energetic system is restructuring in this new era of life. And, that starts at the bottom and moves up the chakras. It's already hitting your root chakra and your sacral chakra. And you've already been working on that, and it's solidifying something new that's unlikely to reverse. What you build now, I think, has much more stable foundation than anything you've built in years before. That's all kind of being poised to crumble eventually. But I think now, whatever you're doing, you're really moving into a new stage and building something that can last for a substantial amount of time. And, once those two chakras are really solidified, then your solar plexus is going to be next. And that's going to be one of the hardest. The solar plexus is the chakra that deals with self-esteem and self-image, social interactions with other people, and you're going to have a lot of work to do in that area. And you need to rethink the way that you interact with people, work on listening without being defensive and really hearing what the other person's saying, offering help, making sure you think of others even when it's not always convenient, even when they haven't directly asked you, thinking what someone else needs, what someone else wants, and being able to anticipate that need. That's something that really grows the solar plexus chakra in a big way. Whenever you're proactive with something like that, you show kind of how far you've come and your intentions to do good, to power the chakra, to really connect with that energy and with people and with your own purpose. So you're going to have to push yourself socially and eventually push through that desire to isolate and to keep everything to yourself. Because that might be working, maybe it's worked in the past, maybe it's working to a degree now, but to really break out of your stasis when it reaches a certain point, that's going to have to be something that comes through. And you have to push against those natural instincts in order to really grow the energy. And you have to open up through the solar plexus before you reach the heart chakra, which is what's really going to cleanse your emotional weight and clear through the issues that you have with other people. Stuff with other people, in certain ways begin the solar plexus, but really reaches its emotional depth in the heart chakra. You can't guard your heart forever. You have to find people that you can be honest with and really tell how you feel, and stop holding that stuff back and release all the stored up hurt and fear, and it's going to be like a knot untying. And that's going to help you with emotional regulation in the future. And, when you start really speaking truth and opening up and being honest with yourself and with other people about your feelings, that clears away so much damage in the heart chakra. And it makes it easier every time. When you really want to say something, when you really want to be heard, and when you want to allow other people to be heard, and to actually foster heart connections instead of shutting them down. Now, as I said, your third eye is going to open naturally. And when it does, you have to face some realities about your life, including the immaturity of some people who are around you, or who have been around you. The environments that you've been in, both at home and friend groups over the years, I'm being told have held you back. Just the people who've really been big in your life, who've been, creating the environments you've been in, have included bad influences and toxic dynamics and incompatible connections. And, all of those things put you somewhere where you don't belong. And that leads to depression and listlessness. When the person or the people you spend the most time with, they're bringing you down, they're not really connecting with who you are, they're not helping you foster all the good things about yourself, and instead kind of encouraging you to dissociate from yourself or to lean into your worst habits. That leads to just being drained and feeling hopeless and listless. And now, for the first time in your life, you're in a position to rise above that by following your own inner voice, which becomes clearer and clearer the more you open the third eye chakra. Because, that's what that chakra helps you connect to. And the more you connect there, people won't have such a hold on you. And I think that's going to be very true, that, you're going to no longer make life decisions based on what other people want you to do, or what, other people make you think you should be. And, there's no more trying to impress friends or taking their bad advice or trying to warp your existence to fit around a person who's just not a good match in your life. Because I feel like, you've been contorting yourself into this weird shape the last while, but now it's you can stand up straight. And you don't have to, coil yourself around someone else's idea of your life anymore. Not everyone is going to be for you in the long term, or sometimes even the short term. Some people you just don't need around. And some people will be around for a while, and you're going to realize that they're not doing you any favors. So, just not everyone is for you, for your life, and you should never change yourself to the extent that maybe you have in the past to try to make them fit, or make yourself fit into their world. So no more shrinking yourself. You should never try to mute yourself. No more making yourself smaller, or changing personality or interest or anything like that to match something that's just totally different from who you are and who you want to be and what really makes you happy and connected to the self. All of your guidance should be coming from within yourself. and the people that you trust to really understand and connect with you, and people who want to see you thrive as an individual. You know, when it comes to guidance, you know, which typically done through the crown, you know, everything that you should be letting in should be a positive influence on the person that you want to be, that you're trying to be. Your own inner voice and those that you know really care about you, really value you. And you should never be close to people who don't value your individualism and appreciate you for your true self. And I'm told, you know, you're never going to fit in a box. You're too eccentric, and that's not a bad thing. There's just something very different and wondrous about you. And you're kind of an interesting, I think, blend of characteristics. And, you know, it says that you're capable of great curiosity and outside-the-box thinking. And, you know, in your way, like, very childlike wonder. And, you know, there are parts of you that are older, you know, like you saw a lot of bad things in your life, and that, you know, made you, at least at a point, more closed off and jaded in certain ways, but at the same time, it gave you a sense of realism. And, you know, you gotta balance that and, you know, be smart and aware, but at the same time, not be dismissive of the world, not close yourself off, not close your heart. And, you know, that's kind of the older, more worldly part of you. And then there are other parts of you that are very young and still in their way naive and innocent, and that makes you able to see things like no one else sees them, because you can find joy and intrigue in the little things that other people might overlook. You know, you have a very inquisitive mind, you like to learn, to experience, and you love things that are new and different. And like a child experiences all things for the first time, you know, you too can experience childlike wonder and curiosity and magic. And many people can't, because they don't care about that sort of thing. They're so focused on, you know, the material things in this world that don't matter, or because their existence is just too ironic. By which I mean that people are very afraid of sincerity. You know, they never tell the truth. They don't want to seem like they care. They act like everything's stupid. They don't really want to admit that they get enjoyment and wonder and levity out of things. They're just too removed from that. And, you know, it says you've had friends like this in your life, and you've tried to match energy with them, and trying to do that has only torn you down and hurt the part of you that's still innocent and wants to let the light in. And you have to let the light in. That light, you know, it enters through your third eye. And that's where you can see what you want to see, have your own vision of the world, not be poisoned by other people's cynicism. Because you get to choose how you see the world, and you get to choose what light you let in. And, you know, you can choose to honor truth, or you can choose to, you know, lean into lying and deceit and, you know, competing with people and trying to come off like you don't care. But I think you do care. And, you know, the other guiding force in your life, besides yourself, besides the people that you really trust, is the universe itself. You know, the universe, your guides, celestial beings, they all push you down, you know, your right path. They guide you to be the best that you can be. And that's a connection that's never broken. And even when you feel alone, that thread's always connecting you to something much bigger than yourself through the crown chakra. And, you know, as much as you try to shut the world out sometimes, that's not really possible, because you're always connected to everything that's in existence. You're an integral part of existence, of the greater existence in the world, and of the universe itself, because all aspects of the universe work together, like little gears, and the universe can't function without your individual energy, and it never has, and it never will, because we're all created from the universe, and we're all part of one fabric. And you remove any one person from there, or by person I mean, any one soul's energy, and there's a hole, and nothing works as it should anymore. There's no cutting yourself off from everything or wishing yourself out of existence, because even in death, our essence is still fused to the world, and we're still a part of the makeup of everything, because we're cosmic beings, and our crown is the connection to that, and it serves as a reminder and links us to the highest versions of ourselves. And whenever anything is making you feel small or insignificant, or if you feel hated or despised by people, that's just an earthly experience. And it's a cycle for the soul to grow and become its most powerful. Because on the other side, we're all beings of immense light and immense power. And our only goal on earth is to rise above our situation and to connect to the godly side of our being. And be more than our situation, more than our surroundings, because that's all just an earthly distraction, And when in your life the only thing that comes to matter is highest connection, between the self and the universe, and following the plan that it has for us, then, you rise above every situation, and then you're always at peace. And whenever we transcend our limits, we break the cycle, whatever that cycle is, the cycle of abuse, of repetition, of boredom, of our own bad behavior, or listlessness, or, any situation that we just keep getting ourselves stuck in, or any behavioral patterns that we keep repeating. When we break that cycle, we become the highest version of ourselves, and then we don't have to repeat that cycle again. It's like our soul is upgraded. And that's why, eventually, when we've learned everything and our time on earth is done, then we're on to something bigger cosmically. But in order for that to happen, we have to break every cycle. So that's why we always have to be working on ourselves, always have to be finding the best way to approach any situation. And whenever you find something in your life that you don't know why it happened, you don't know why it keeps happening, you don't want it to happen again, you've got to look at your own behavior and figure out, how do I do things differently? How do I break the cycle in order for this not to be a weight on my soul anymore? So that's the end of your message. Hopefully that made sense to you. And I get this stuff for people a lot, but I think I pick it up more when I think that someone's really interested, in hearing it, and that it's helping. So, if you want to keep hearing stuff like this, if you like these videos, then that's great. If I'm overwhelming you at this point and I've been telling you too much stuff, let me know, and I'll not, overwhelm you with so much information that's coming through. Yeah. So let me know if you like watching them, or if you need a break.